Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I want to take a look at some of the different Covenant abilities mages have to play with on the alpha. Mages was one of the first few classes that we got to actually find out about some of their Covenant abilities, but how good are they? Now that we are able to test them on the alpha, and this is early alpha, so these abilities are most likely going to change in the future, I want to take a look at what mages will be able to play with when it comes to Covenants. Mages aren't changing much, but these Covenant abilities might impact their gameplay in massive ways. So let's take a look at some of those Covenant abilities from the 4 different Covenants. We'll also address some of the signature Covenant abilities as well and how they benefit mages, and we'll explore which ones I like at the end of this video with a rating from most like to least like, and I'll give you guys my reasonings for it. Spoiler, just because an ability hits really hard doesn't mean I rate it highly. I usually like to rate things based on utility or outside uses. Anyway, let's get into the video. The first Covenant we'll be taking a look at for mages is going to be the Kyrian Covenant. When choosing the Kyrian Covenant as a mage, you get the ability of Radiant Spark, which has a fairly short 30-second cooldown. You fire off some arcane damage at the enemy with a small dot. The target takes 10% more damage from the next enemy spell, and this effect stacks up to 4 spells, so your 4th spell is going to have the most impact for it. It is a perfect ability for any of the mage specs, as most mages can really play into this ramp heavy playstyle. This works pretty well for fire mages who are trying to line up Fire Blast and Pyroblast during combustion, maybe frost mages that are trying to line up a massive glacial spike into the enemy, or arcane mages arcane blasting at the boss. Either way, this ability amplifies your ramp up playstyle. What's nice about this ability is its short CD, and it's interesting to see what kind of min-maxing mages could use with this ability to max out the damage. We might even have mages playing different talents they normally wouldn't play, in order to make sure that the 4th spell they hit is going to have the biggest blaster damage available for this combination. However, it is a very simple ability. It's not really all that exciting, it's kind of plain. It doesn't really take too much to set it up. It has a short cooldown, so you'll be able to use it quite often, and it's more of a single target focus, so it's not like there's that much play around it. You know me, I'm a huge fan of abilities that have multiple uses and a variety of creative ways that you might be able to use certain abilities. And this ability isn't bad, but it is maybe too plain for me. The second ability you get for picking the Kyrian Covenant is going to be to summon a steward, who will give you a vial which will give you a small heal and remove every negative effect like diseases, bleeds, curses, everything but magic effects. This can be quite good for mages, although mages already deal pretty well with curses since they can decurse themselves, but having a little bit of survivability for a caster class, especially being able to immune certain dots without having to ice block all of them, is going to be quite nice for mages. And this ability can also be expanded in a variety of ways from your Kyrian Covenant. So overall, I would say the signature ability is really not a bad combo, and this ability might be statistically the best for single target. I guess only time will tell after Blizzard does balancing, but I could totally see this ability be the perfect ability for pure single target. The next Covenant we'll be taking a look at is from the Fey Covenant. It's an ability called Shift in Power on a fairly short 45-second cooldown. When using this ability, you draw power from the ground, AoEing enemies around you while you're channeling for nature damage. While channeling this ability, your CDs are reduced by 3 seconds every few seconds of the channel, so it's kind of like a massive cooldown reduction mechanic. All you have to do is channel this ability. You can channel this for a few moments and then cancel it if you need to move. So this ability is going to force mages to kind of hunker down in one place and channel, unless you decided to play Shimmer build. And with the changes to Shimmer with mages being that Shimmer only has 1 charge now, you will really have to plan this ability in dungeons and raids to make sure you're not channeling and then fire spawns under you and then you have to run away. So maybe mages will play with this ability together with Shimmer to maybe be able to start channeling and then blink into the enemy trash bag doing AoE damage. This ability actually does do quite a bit of AoE damage in itself, but when it comes to playing mage and trying to find ways to use this in AoE trash bags, unless you arcane, it really doesn't feel like mages belong in the melee since you are, well, kind of squishy. It's an interesting ability regardless. What I really like about it is the cooldown reduction aspect. It is a very interesting mechanic. Right now we get to play with cooldown reduction as a mage or any other character through corruptions, but once corruptions are gone, this will be the only ability available unless you're a class with some baked-in cooldown reduction mechanics. So I'm actually kind of a huge fan of this specific playstyle. Yeah, channeling while standing still and not being able to move is a little awkward, but the cooldown reduction might honestly offset it. The ability for you to get your blinks back faster, or defensives, or the utility abilities in a shorter cooldown is kind of interesting. It definitely is a ability worth considering, because yeah, there's drawbacks, but then the cooldowns though. Imagine as a mage being able to use this a couple times outside of, let's say, combustion, to be able to get combustions a lot more often. Maybe with specific talent builds that reduce cooldowns. With other methods, you could be like a 45-second combustion mage in certain cases. The AoE damage this ability does also seems pretty decent. I mean, again, the most important part that I really want to drive home is it feels kind of awkward as a mage standing still and having to channel an ability. As soon as I start channeling, it makes me want to shimmer my way out of there. But now that mages have lost a lot of the mobility, going for the normal blinks on a shorter cooldown just seems so much more value. But maybe overall this ability will be really good for AoE and maybe decent for single target. The cooldown reduction is definitely an interesting mechanic to play with overall. The second ability you get for the Fey Covenant is to soul shift yourself into a fox. It's kind of like a pseudo ghost wolf form, but for mages, and you have 30% movement speed increase, so that's really nice. You also have a short-term teleport forward, but if you use any abilities to self-heal or to damage enemies or to crowd control, it takes you out of fox form. So for a mage, since they are losing their shimmer playstyle, going for this soul shift ability and then having this small blink forward and being able to run away from an enemy might actually become a little more valuable. This could give mages an opportunity to reposition since they are losing some of that mobility. However, a class like a mage is still pretty mobile, even with the nerfs happening in Shadowlands. So I could definitely see somebody forgoing this ability completely, well, because you have to go into fox form and you can't use damaging abilities, otherwise they'll pull you out of form, which is a little weird. The way mages play right now is they'll just shimmer around enemies while casting spells, and this playstyle and this ability would kind of disrupt that, which I think would feel unnatural. However, overall, the base ability for the shift in power does seem quite interesting when it comes to mages. The third ability we have from the Covenants is going to be from the Necrolord Covenant. And this ability is the first hefty one that we have seen. It's a 3-minute cooldown. It's called Deathborn. You transform yourself into a powerful undead mage for 20 seconds. While in your form, your Frostbolt, Fireball, Arcane Blast will hit up to 2 additional nearby targets, and its damage is increased by 10%. So in a sense, it's kind of like I would even describe it as maybe like a soft mage incarn form or something along those lines. It allows a mage to go into the super powerful form, but it's not super powerful because your blasts are only 10% stronger. However, they do have a little bit of cleave. And if you're a class that's all about banking a bunch of fireballs for your basic rotation as a fire mage, for example, maybe with specific talent, this could be ridiculously strong as a combo. As an arcane mage, this seems to be a no-brainer as an ability, seems very powerful. And even for Frost, the Frostbolt damage that you can put out before you go into the massive glacials, I mean, you're going to be throwing out a bunch of Frostbolts building up for icicles anyway. So this ability seems quite strong. It isn't quite a hefty 3-minute cooldown though. The cleave playstyle is a little nice, and that would mean that this ability can be used in single target where you're trying to focus a single enemy while trying to kind of off-cleave others. So that could be really good and potentially strong for frost mages when it comes to dungeons in control, where you might not want to drop a blizzard on 2 or 3 targets rather than like on 5 or 6 or something like that. I think this ability would be kind of difficult to use in PvP unless you gave mages a little bit extra value for this, and this might change in the future. Hell, there might have been an update recently that made this ability stronger, like making mages immune to certain CC while you're inside of this form. But I couldn't really see a lot of mages going into this form because, well, in PvP, as a fire mage you'll try to fire blast and pyro, as a frost mage you'll try to line up for, you know, big shatters with all the instacast abilities from your talents. And arcane mages will mostly blink around the enemy and try to hit them with arcane missiles as much as possible. So I can't really see in PvP a lot of mages using the basic abilities, maybe frost or something like that, just going through frost bolts and trying to use this offensively in PvP. So I could definitely see this ability be kind of niche for PvE specific uses, so I don't really know how good it's going to be, but it does sound very exciting. I just wish it had a little bit extra to it, but by the time I make this video, there'll probably be an extra bonus, like you cannot be interrupted, or you're immune to stuns, or something cool along those lines. I think that'd be really neat for this ability. The Covenant ability, that's the signature ability for the Necrolord, is an Absorb Shield. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and when you channel this around dead enemies, especially if they are elite enemies, then the shield gets stronger. So it's a 2-minute absorb that lasts quite a while and can be used quite often. For a class, it's all about mobility, and that's pretty squishy. As a mage, absorb is kind of nice, and it can overlap with your mage absorbs too, so it can give you a little bit extra of that longevity. It doesn't have a 2-minute cooldown, but you can sometimes use this in Mythic Plus dungeons or in raids, and you might even potentially be able to use it to survive certain mechanics. I can definitely see it being very useful in PvP, just to get as early of a shield in order to make it harder to really take you down, at least at the start of an arena. With also some of the other modifications you could do for this Covenant ability as well, you can make it a little bit more durable. The final ability for the mages is going to be from the Reverend Covenant. It is called Mirrors of Torment. This ability isn't the longest in CD, but it's not the shortest, a 1.5 minute CD. You conjure 3 mirrors that will fire off at your enemy 3 times when they use abilities or cast spells. As in, you'll put a debuff on the enemy, and the debuff will kind of monitor if the enemies use abilities or if they cast spells. If enemies only auto attack, it doesn't fire. But what this does, each shot will slow the enemy down and will reduce the casting speed by a bit. And the last shot will silence the enemy and root him for a short amount of time, doing the most amount of damage in the final blow. The silence and the root will last for seconds, so you would think this would be pretty good for something like PvP. It just feels like a PvP based ability. Overall, I would say it's kind of probably the weirdest ability to use. If let's say an enemy does only auto attacks, then this ability will actually not go off. If, let's say, this ability times out while it still has all the charges, it won't use all those charges and blast the boss kind of all together. The enemy has to use abilities, so in dungeons where you're going up against bosses or certain adds that don't have any mechanics, or even worse, let's say you have a Mythic Plus group and you have certain adds that will be casting spells at you. Your team does not want to get hit by those spells, so they're probably going to go and interrupt them. So this ability won't really get that much value when going up against powerful enemies that are casters. The root and the silence can be useful if you let the enemies use their abilities, but in most PvE moments, unless it's a boss, I don't really see how much value this could be. The damage is quite nice. I just wish they made it so that if, let's say, the enemy doesn't use all their abilities, this ability still does damage no matter what. In PvP is where I could definitely see this ability being used, although it can be dispelled, which is kind of annoying when you think about it, because I could definitely see like a healer just pop a dispel off on an enemy. However, in PvP, if let's say an enemy uses abilities or starts casting and trying to heal their friends or whatever it may be, then this ability will eventually silence them and root them. So this could be good in order to kind of prevent a healer from healing an ally. This ability seems very PvP focused. It has a very cool idea and a very flashy visual, and I would actually like this ability to work well, but for mages right now, it's kind of the weirdest. I think this one needs a little bit of rework for PvE purposes. It has a really cool idea behind it. It's just, it either needs to do a lot more damage for the playstyle to really be that good, or they need to change it a little bit so you have direct damage even if the enemy doesn't use abilities or spells. Very interesting ability from the Venthyr Covenant, but I would like to see updates. The second ability, which is probably the coolest for the mages when it comes to the Venthyr Covenant, is the Doorway to Shadows. It's a short-term teleport, and with mages losing mobility, with Shimmer getting only 1 charge, this is extra mobility for a class that's all about mobility. Definitely invaluable, and I think it's going to be super fun to play with. As a mage, you'll be able to get around the battlefield a lot easier between blinks, between your breaths, and between your novas, and now between teleports. It'll make it that much harder for melee in PvP to catch you. I think it's a really cool ability, and I cannot wait to test it out for myself on my rogue. Anyway guys, it's going to be all the Mage Covenant abilities that we have, and this is my list. I have to put the Reverend ability at the least favorite, but maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe this ability will actually be really good in the numbers, and in most cases against boss fights, bosses are going to be using certain abilities like a tank buster mechanic, so they will get value from this ability. And this could be an insane ability for PvP. It's just the way it is right now, I feel like it could go through a couple changes. The rest of the abilities I really don't mind, but I'd say mages so far have been pretty tame when it comes to Covenant abilities. But you guys let me know your thoughts about Mage Covenant abilities in the comments below. I'd like to hear all you guys' thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.